Hello, my name is Mark Valchich. I'm the Treasurer for the Town of East Gwillimbury, and I'm pleased to present the 2016 proposed East Gwillimbury Business Plan and Budget. This proposal was presented to Town Council on October 20th, 2015, and it is the first draft of the budget. We anticipate the final version of the majority of the budget to be adopted by Council on December 15th. The water and wastewater component will follow in January. In this presentation, we will review the town's current fiscal position, how the town has positioned itself for the growth that is now beginning, the 2016 budget objectives, the four distinct components of the budget, and those include capital, water and wastewater, costs supported by development and fees, the operating budget, which has two facets, base programs and services, which are funded with existing assessment, and new services related to growth, which are funded with new assessment. During the last term of Council, we accomplished a number of things. We continue to be debt-free, a position that is envied among municipalities in Ontario. The tax levy increases for base programs and services in recent years have been aligned with inflation, and our objective is to try to continue that. There has been significant investment in capital infrastructure funded not by taxes, but by grants and other partnerships, which has been very good news for the residents of East Gwillimbury. And all of this we have done while continuing to build reserves for a sustainable future. We have been mindful to build our 2016 budget to support the three primary pillars of the town's strategic plan. Those are, number one, to provide quality, affordable programs and services for a safe, accessible, and livable community. Number two, to build a complete community that provides healthy places to live, work, play, and learn. And number three, to build a high-performance municipal organization that is committed to service and excellence. The primary objectives of the 2016 Budget and Business Plan are as follows: to maintain the core programs and services for residents and to keep any related tax rate increases aligned with inflation, which is running about 2.2% in the province of Ontario. To maintain our continued focus on community safety through a multi-year funding plan. To renew our focus on customer service, to ensure that we are available to answer the questions residents have and to provide them with the services they expect. Number four, we are in that brief but predictable transition stage where we have costs related to growth, but we don't yet have full occupancy from new homes. So we must be responsible about the timing of new programs and services. It's important that we manage our costs carefully in advance of receiving the new assessment revenue from those new occupancies. Number five, ensure there is a provision for cost of living allowance and potential collective agreement obligations. 6, to provide for new growth-related facility operating costs so that when our population is ready to support new facilities such as recreation centers and libraries, we will be able to afford to operate those facilities. Number 7, to allocate some money in reserve for the maintenance and ultimate replacement of our infrastructure, including roads, bridges, water, and sewer systems. The total proposed budget for 2016 is about $36 million. Slightly more than half of it is the operating portion of the budget. The 2016 capital budget primarily represents costs that are one-time or time-specific in nature. It can include construction of facilities and short-term costs like consultants to prepare studies and reviews. It also includes the annual repair and replacement of roads, water systems, and facilities. In 2016, we plan a new focus on customer service. This will include improving some internal systems such as the citywide work order management system that will support our community infrastructure and environmental services department. It can also tie this information into a customer inquiry tracking system so that as residents call in, our customer service representatives will have access to the most current information. Our financial system upgrade is underway and will continue into 2016. CityView Select is an existing system that supports our development services department. We plan to upgrade it to help integrate the building and planning functions and increase efficiency in both those areas. This could even make bylaw enforcement more efficient. This is part of our effort to use better tools throughout the organization. We are also looking at fiber connectivity for better internet service to our sports complex. Our operations staff who are working from offices there need efficient access to information and to communicate with other staff at the Civic Center. 2016 will be an important year for updating master plans to inform growth-related decisions and financial plans to ensure that we are collecting the growth-related revenues we need to support the infrastructure that will be required. Continued maintenance and repair of town's infrastructure includes road and sidewalk repairs as an annual requirement. The Civic Center is more than 20 years old and needs some renewal and maintenance to make sure that it also stays in a good state of repair. The LED project will remove high-cost light bulbs and install low-cost LED fixtures. The savings can be reinvested to fund the bulb replacement program, saving the taxpayers money. This is just one example of some of the creative measures we are implementing to ensure that our services are delivered in the most efficient way. Another capital cost is the replacement of vehicles and equipment as they reach the end of their productive service life. And the capital budget also includes key improvements to trails that are enjoyed by our residents. The water and wastewater budget is paid for by user fees and not by taxes. The town is moving towards full cost recovery, including not only the delivery of water to residents and the removal of wastewater, but also the maintenance of all the equipment that is required to supply these services. One of the requirements of our drinking water license renewal is that we update our financial plan. A company by the name of Watson & Associates are working with staff to put together a rate study and financial plan. York Region Council recently approved a 9% annual increase for each of the next 5 years. And that drives about half of the costs for our water and wastewater system in East Gwillimbury, because that's where we purchase our water and that's where we send our wastewater for processing. The rate study and financial plan will help us make decisions about our 2016 water and wastewater budget. The rate study is expected to be completed in November and the financial plan in December. That will help us bring a proposed water and wastewater budget to Council in January of 2016. The budget also includes components that are funded by fees rather than by taxes. Planning, engineering, parks, and fill operations are examples. The fees we charge are calculated to fully recover our costs. Some new requests that would be funded from fees include additional development services staff to deal with new home construction and some of the occupancies that we expect in 2016. This chart shows 4 reserve balances related to growth: building, planning, engineering, and park development. For each reserve account, we're showing here the balance over time. The balance is the difference between the fees we receive and the money we spend to provide services such as processing of planning applications, inspections, processing of permits, and parks design and development. As you can see, in the past there has been a downward trend, indicating that reserves were being depleted because revenues were insufficient to cover our costs. This was not sustainable. At the direction of Council during their last term, staff undertook a comprehensive development fee review, and as a result, fees were increased. As you can see, 3 of the reserve accounts are now moving in an upward direction. Parks development fees were newly introduced and will need further review to ensure this balance turns upward and continues to remain positive. The operating budget covers base programs and services, which are primarily supported by property taxes, although some of the costs are offset by fees and charges. And you can see how this breaks down. About 3/4 of it pays for the types of services that residents experience firsthand, including garbage removal, road maintenance, recreational facilities, emergency services, and libraries. About 23% of the taxes pay for support services, those things that are a little bit more behind the scenes. Those include our customer service staff, who residents talk to when they have questions about their water bills or tax bills, and the communications that town staff provide to keep residents informed about important civic matters. This chart shows where the proposed operating budget money will come from. The vast majority of it comes from sustainable revenues, including taxes, user fees, fines, and licenses. It's not sustainable to rely too heavily on outside grants or to draw from reserves to fund day-to-day operations. We have a healthy, sustainable revenue stream to cover the ongoing costs in our operating budget. The base programs and services budget continues to have a strong commitment to community safety. The emergency services portion represents a multi-year plan to significantly increase service, and the blue portion shows the rest of our core programs and services. Starting in 2014, our annual budgets have included the multi-year plan to enhance community safety to provide 24/7 full-time crews of firefighters. In 2015, Council approved the Emergency Services Multi-Year Staffing Plan to enhance our service level, and this multi-year plan supports the hiring of 2 additional firefighters in 2016. The multi-year plan was built on the premise that there would be a 1.75% dedicated tax rate increase over a 4-year period. This was made with a few assumptions. Positions are typically budgeted to be filled mid-year. As well, some degree of transitional cost reductions would be required in 2015 and 2016, which we will look at in a moment. And Council decided in 2015 to use the Emergency Services Reserve to stabilize the 1.75% over the 4-year period because our costs are not exactly the same each year. 1.75% represents about $25 per average household in East Gwillimbury. The major pressures driving the 2016 budget will include salaries and benefits. Not surprisingly, these are driven by the people who provide the services to the residents and to the community. That involves all program and service areas, including emergency services. There's a provision for cost of living and collective agreements. There's also a provision for increased funding to the library. There were pressures on waste collection costs. The Provincial Operating Grant, also referred to as OMPF, is anticipated to be reduced very slightly for 2016, however, is expected to reduce further in the future as the rural-urban mix changes. And we also see some modest pressure from increasing utility costs. The major pressures are offset by a few mitigating factors. Some modest assessment growth is expected, not from new homes, but from the existing MPAC assessment roll. The emergency services portion of the proposed budget includes a modest draw on the Emergency Services Reserve. We've also had permanent savings through reductions in the Pay for Performance program. Some very modest changes are required in the 2016 Transitional Cost Reduction Plan. And so the net pressure is about $320,000 for the base programs and services and about $270,000 for emergency services. What does this mean in terms of a proposed tax levy increase? It's about 2.2% for base programs and services, and this lines up with the provincial rate of inflation, which is running at 2.2%. And then there's a dedicated 1.75% to increase community safety. We have transitional cost reductions in place now, and we believe these will be necessary again in 2016. So we are proposing reductions of $440,000 in core services plus $60,000 in emergency services. We believe we will be able to achieve that through a continued review of our program areas, delayed hiring until absolutely necessary, and savings through efficiencies. We propose to be very selective about professional development and to introduce some centralized purchasing that should result in some procurement savings. The second part of the operating budget relates to what we think will be the actual home construction and occupancy in 2016. There will be additional revenues from taxes, but there will be some timing issues. On move-in day, new residents will expect to be able to pick up the phone and have someone answer their questions, register for rec programs, have their garbage picked up, and all of the community services that residents expect when they move into a new community. One of the issues is that MPAC can take up to 18 months to 24 months to fully assess a new home for taxation purposes. So although the taxes will apply starting from move-in day, we won't receive the cash right away. The question becomes, how do we bridge the gap, making sure that we are providing the services to the residents that they need when they move in and dealing with the cash flow delay. Of the nearly 1,500 homes that were sold in 2015 but are not yet constructed, we expect about 500 will be occupied in 2016. In a full year, 500 homes would generate approximately $800,000 in new taxes. However, these 500 homes won't actually be occupied until probably the latter half of 2016. So the additional revenue that we can realistically expect in 2016 is perhaps half of the total, or approximately $400,000. Once the building permits have been issued, we know that the tax revenue will come in. It's just a matter of timing. However, we will have additional expenses early in 2016 to provide the services that the new residents will expect as soon as they move in. So we will have a cash flow gap. We are proposing to bridge that gap by temporarily using the working capital reserve to cover those expenses until taxes are received from the new homeowners. It's important that this is tracked so that when those additional taxes come in, they are first applied to replenish the working capital reserve. Some of the new growth-related initiatives that we're proposing for 2016 will provide the resources we need to ensure that residents can access appropriate services. These include one staff conversion from contract to permanent employment, a revenue analyst to deal with additional billings for new residents and to ensure that collections, analysis, and information is provided to residents when they call in or visit the town. In 2016, MPAC will also be conducting a full update of assessment values province-wide. This will result in a dramatic increase in residents asking town staff for information and assistance in 2016. a GIS technician to help improve efficiency, as our information systems have become much more integrated and reliant on mapping and geocoding. Planning, development tracking, and bylaw enforcement are just examples of areas that rely on geographic addresses, and GIS allows us to access the information much more efficiently. The procurement manager position will help us centralize purchasing to standardize purchasing practices, update our procurement bylaw, and make better use of taxpayers' dollars. We are the only municipality in Northern York Region that does not have a dedicated purchasing position, and with the growth that is on our doorstep, the time is right to hire this kind of support. This is also a key part of the risk management for the town. Some of the new tax assessment is proposed to be used to help us prepare for the new facilities that will be required by a growing population. These could include recreation and active living plazas, libraries, community centers, and operation centers. So the new assessment will be earmarked to help us afford the operating costs of those new facilities when they come online. The town owns and operates over $300 million worth of assets, and that will increase with new growth. We need to make sure that we have money not only to operate these assets, but also to replace them when they ultimately are necessary to be replaced. This has become a challenge for all public service organizations. We are proposing to set aside about $150,000 of the new assessment growth revenues for that purpose. So, going back to our business plan and budget objectives, there were 7 of them. The first was to maintain our core programs and services with related tax rate increases no greater than the rate of inflation, which is right now running about 2.2%, and 2.2% represents about $32 for the average EG household. The proposed budget achieves that objective. Continued focus on community safety through the dedicated multi-year funding plan. The base budget includes 2 additional firefighters with a 1.75% increase, which represents about $25 for the average household in East Gwillimbury. So that budget objective has also been achieved. A priority focus on customer service and systems development. A number of growth-related resources and some capital initiatives have been identified to provide the information systems and tools we need to make sure that our residents are getting the support they expect. The objective has been achieved. Continued transitional cost reduction and funding strategies to ensure we keep increases to the base budget aligned with inflation. The proposed budget does that. Provision for COLA and collective agreements. This is provided for in the base budget, and so that's been achieved as well. The provision for new growth-related facility operating costs. $125,000 has been allocated from new assessment to make sure we are ready to operate those facilities when they come online. That is included and has been achieved within the proposed budget. And increased funding for asset management. This is the infrastructure deficit that all municipalities and the public service organizations are wrestling with. The proposed budget includes $150,000 to start to provide the funding that we will need when infrastructure needs to be renewed or replaced. That objective has also been achieved in the proposed budget. All 7 of the budget objectives have been achieved within a 2.2% tax levy increase, or about $32 per household, in order to maintain the core programs and services. This is aligned with the rate of inflation. Plus a dedicated 1.75% increase, or about $25 per household, to continue our focus on community safety. The 2016 budget process started at the beginning of August with extensive analysis conducted by staff. The proposed budget was presented to Council in public session on October 20th. There are 2 full days of budget deliberations scheduled on the 10th and 13th of November, beginning at 9 a.m. We anticipate Council will ultimately consider adoption of the majority of the budget on December 15th at 7 p.m. And then with the information provided through the updated rate study and financial plan for the water and wastewater, that portion of the budget is expected to come forward in January of next year. As always, there are many opportunities for public input. All budget meetings are open to the public, and the town's communications channels are providing information and public notification for those who wish to attend. Your written input can also be provided by email or online at the town's website. Please visit our website at eastgwillimbury.ca/budget for further information and forms for you to provide your input to us. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you for watching this presentation and for your interest in the 2016 budget process.